Hello, everyone. It's Penny Reed, and welcome to another episode of the Dental MBA podcast hosted by eAssist. Super excited to be coming to you live for this episode from Dental Podfest in Orlando, Florida. And it's my privilege to have my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Alan Stern, with me today. Thanks, Alan, for joining me.
Penny, it's great. I really appreciate the invite. You held it out to me last week, and it's great to be with you again.
It's great to be with you, too. I somewhat feel like we're on an episode of Saturday Night Live. You know, the NPR radio show where they have Steve Baldwin on? Maybe not that one. But
No.
Anyway, but it's fun. Saturday Night Live is always fun.
Yes.
So many of you may not know Dr. Alan Stern. I had the privilege of meeting him quite a few years back. And one of the many things that we share in common is a common business coach that we've worked with. And we were talking about him a little bit before as we were running through our programming today. And I thought, well, hey, let's talk about the importance of a coach and give a little bit of a tribute to the guy. So I'll let you kick that off and about the importance of having a coach. And I know that that's the work that you do now that you've retired, if you ever really retired.
I am not retired. Let's make that clear. I'm rewired and refired.
I love it.
So let's get that out of the way
Okay.
first.
All right.
But, you know, one of the things I discovered, I have 100 different Alanisms. Alanism number 20 is no one gets there alone. The finest athletes, the greatest performers, the worst politicians, the best leaders, they all have what in common? They all have coaches. And if we're going to get somewhere and stay there securely and with somebody to lean on, a coach, I think, is a non-negotiable imperative. The right coach. We have, I don't know about you, Penny, but I had the wrong coaches for a long time. And that led me down a really nasty primrose path. But what I did right, eventually I let those coaches go. I drifted for a while, and then I stumbled into people like Mark LeBlanc, who have really guided me to be what I am today.
Yeah.
So important.
Well, and we were talking beforehand, and I had only two business coaches back when I was in my consulting career. So I like to call myself a recovering practice management coach. Although it's still in my DNA, I love helping people. It's one of the things at eAssist that I enjoy is knowing that maybe I'm not having that direct impact, but that indirect impact. But I would say we both agreed that Mark was like one of the top 5 or 6 influencers on our life and on our career. And part of how that you may wonder, how does this tie into Dental MBA? Growth occurs in relationship. And as you mentioned, surrounding yourself with the right people. And Alan, a lot of the work that you do is with young dentists that we we discussed that. And as dentistry has shifted and continues to shift away from private practice and more towards DSO, there's a lot of young dentists out there that are looking for direction. So why don't we start there with usually what some of their common issues are and how you direct them?
Yeah, I think the profession has changed a lot since I entered it in 1981. Wow. And it used to be you graduate school, you hang your shingle, they break the doors down, you retire at 40 on your boat and sip mint juleps. It's not going to happen that way anymore. The truth of the matter is there is no easy way. But let's look at the upside of this thing, because there's a downside to everything. Whether you are a DSO employee or whether you are in your own practice, you have the ability to change people's lives every single day. And you all have the talent. Whether you're a recent grad or a 40-year practitioner, you have accumulated a massive knowledge that 93% of the world does not have, and 100% of the world needs and wants. If you could bring yourself to understanding that a stupid occlusal composite changes the course of a person's life, as does a beautiful AACD restoration, that's one step. The other step is we begin to focus as the profession starts to put more pressure on us, we focus on getting the production done and doing the procedure. But you and I discussed this, Penny. What has to come before that is empathy, loving kindness, connecting to another human being, understanding who they are, what they need, what they want, what their desires and their limitations are. If we could connect with another human being like that, we establish trust. When you have trust, the term case acceptance, which is out of my vocab, by the way, that becomes bogus because you're in it together. You are walking at that patient's side, getting them to the level of health that they have defined for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that. And it's going back to the growth occurs in relationship, trust occurs in relationship. And I've always viewed case acceptance as coaching, right? It's about helping the patient identify what the challenges are, right? Their present condition, and then where they want to go and what the best solution is for them.
May I bump it up a notch?
You may.
So back in the day, no old man jokes. Well, no, you're not qualified to make old man jokes to me anyway.
I'm not qualified for a lot of things.
But back in the day, we talked about a non-compliant patient. You know the type. The ones who maybe brush their teeth before their recall appointment or who floss when they leave the hygienist chair, but then they kind of fall off the wagon, kind of like New Year's resolutions.
Right.
We called them non-compliant. Do as I say or else. And then we talked about cooperation. Oh, well, if you cooperate with me and clean under those braces, we can get you straight teeth and they won't leave stupid little marks on your teeth. Mm-hmm. That doesn't work because the word compliant means there's a fist in your face if you don't do it. The word cooperation doesn't work because the authority figure, the great big high mighty doctor, is going to yell at you if you don't cooperate. How about collaborate? Mm-hmm. It's about collaboration. If you can get into a collaborative relationship with another human being to guide them, then everything else falls into place and your outcomes are dramatically better. Your 5-star reviews increase, your 1-stars go away because the patient knows that they have been heard. Mm-hmm. That's so important. We've lost that. We got to get that back.
Well, I think we used to refer to it as chairside manner, which it still is,
yes,
or bedside manner. One of the things that you may not know about me, Alan, which I'm sure there's a lot of things that you don't know, and probably to protect you, we should probably keep it that way.
Yeah.
But back in my coaching career, and really right before I started working with Mark as a coach, I wondered if I was doing the right thing. You know, I know back in the days of me coaching dentists, I would often hear them, stressed or frustrated, say, hey, I'd rather be driving a truck, or I'd rather be a bus driver or a preacher or a farmer or fill in the blank. I have a friend that I went to high school and college with that owns some Dale Carnegie training franchises. And he had mentioned to me, I took the classes probably 15 years prior, that if I ever wanted to join his group, that he would love to have me as a mentor and a trainer. And what was so profound about that was the whole human relation skills. And that's what we're really talking about, was watching the transformation from, being a grad assist and then teaching and then watching people grow as they, like what you're talking about, learn to connect, learned to listen. And I know you shared some very, very thought-provoking concepts about listening, but it is that those human relation skills. And I love technology. I love my smartphone. Like it's the grown-up version of the Whoopee, who wants to go anywhere without their Whoopee? I firmly believe we have done a significant amount of damage, not only to ourselves, but also the younger generation, because it promotes disconnecting, right? It really does. So, but let's go back to what, when you mentioned the most important instrument that a dentist has.
Well, we have so many instruments in our armamentarium, don't we? We have CBCTs, we have 3D printers, we have scanners. God knows what's coming down the pike. Your most important instruments, my friends, are your ears. We all have them. They don't cost us. We don't have to borrow tons of money from the bank to buy them. And the ROI on using your ears is enormous. When we truly listen and we stay in the conversation, as our friend Mary Osborne talks about. When a person starts talking about themselves, follow up with more questions. 3 magic words. Tell me more. You want to know that person, not only for that term that just makes me feel weird, case acceptance. That kind of makes me feel creepy. But also there's a joy in getting to know another human being.
Mm-hmm.
There's a joy that we experience on our end of it. One of the most memorable experiences that I had in practice was a patient brought her mother to me,
Mm-hmm.
and the mother was suffering from dementia, and she was half in it, half out of it. I was able to ask questions and evoke memories from her, and it brought her out again.
Wow.
It brought the real Mrs. X out again. And, the dentistry went well, everything went fine. But those moments can make the difference between burnout
Mm-hmm.
and, man, I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah.
These are the moments that we need to revive and revitalize to keep us in the profession, to keep us enthusiastic, to keep us from walking away. It is about human beings.
Mm-hmm. So true. So true. So we talked about this a little bit earlier too. And I think even though a lot of dentistry is consolidating, being an associate, if we're going back to that part, and then we can talk about being an owner, but it's also isolating, right? Because depending on what sort of relationship you may have with your owner or owners, how do you guide the associates that are maybe at that crossroads to say anything from, have I made the right decision in the profession, or should I continue on as an associate? Or is my best option to open up my own practice or buy an existing practice?
Well, Mark taught both of us, Mark LeBlanc, 10 wants in 10 years. You remember that?
Yes.
So what is it that you want? There's an upside and a downside to everything. One of my Alanisms is pick your pleasure, pick your poison. There will be an upside to being an associate. The upside is going to be freedom to walk. The upside is 5 o'clock comes around, you're going home. The upside is you don't have to worry about managing this, that, or the other.
Mm-hmm.
But you trade off your freedom to decide as you want, the freedom to establish a practice philosophy, the risk and reward that comes with owning and selling, creating your own hours. My daughter won a national title in softball on the junior college level. We closed the office to go to watch her travel and play.
Yeah.
You may not have that as an associate, but it's a balance. And particularly for the moms out there, there's some very serious thinking that has to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a dad. I'm married to a mom. I get it. I absolutely get it. So we identify the things that are most important to us. What are our driving forces? What gives us the most joy when we sit down and do the work that we need to support our families? We want to do it happily.
Mm-hmm.
When we identify those factors, combine them with our core values, which we can identify, then I can guide a person to what they think is going to be the best for them. Are there any guarantees, Penny?
No.
No.
There are not. No.
No. There were times during my practice ownership where I just said, I want to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
But I had the coaches to enable me to work through it all, both financially, management-wise, and I will tell you, and I am not secretive to admit this, with 2 world-class therapists who helped me on an emotional level to deal with all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No one gets there alone.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure. Let's talk for a moment about your book, Enjoy the Ride. You shared with me what inspired you to write the book, and which I think was really gracious of you to be that open. And if you could share with the audience as well.
Tell you that Mark LeBlanc forced me to write the book?
I didn't know that. He didn't force me to write mine, but he did help me write the right book. That's another podcast.
My shoulder still hurts from Mark twisting my arm. So I failed at so many things. I made a lot of bad business decisions. I made a lot of bad practice philosophical decisions. I suffered from comparison syndrome. I suffered from perfection syndrome. I wanted to be something that I wasn't. And I spent a lot of money. I borrowed a lot of money. I studied the dickens out of dentistry that I thought I wanted to do, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't get over the hurdle. I hired consultants and coaches, one of whom will not get into the Honesty Hall of Fame, but several of them were just the wrong coaches, and I owned those decisions. I chose to stay with them. They were the big boys coaches, and I wanted to be a big boy.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I was a big boy. And so $250,000 later, in my upper 40s and lower 50s, it all went sideways. And I had to sell my house under duress. And when I sold the house, I didn't go bankrupt. Everything was fine. We were just living paycheck to paycheck. When I sold that house, I got an 800-pound gorilla off of my back, and that was debt. And I was left with a debt load that I could manage. And all of a sudden, cash flowed. When the patient told me those awful words, "I'll think about it," which means no way on God's good earth, pal. Okay. And when cash started to flow, my wife and I hired personal trainers and nutritionists. We got healthy. And then the magic happened. A tragedy happened. The death of a beloved colleague. But for the grace of God and 2 therapists, I never sunk into that wormhole. I came close, but I never did. And so I went down the Pankey Institute with my friend Jim Otten. We did a program in memory of Andrea Bierman, and we did a research project on depression and suicide in dentistry. And we found that it was real. 4 people in the Pankey alumni, 4 of arguably the most overachieving dentists in the country, came up to us to thank us. And I realized I had something. And I listened to a lot of dentists. And many of them had stories similar to mine. I cracked the code. And now the book is about my story, about how I got to this point, how I cracked the code, and what anybody can do to bring joy and spiritual and material reward into the career that they're so heavily invested in. Enjoy the Ride is the name of the book. And we have 3 unalienable rights in this country, Penny. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of a Tesla. No. The pursuit of a big house. No. The pursuit of what?
Happiness.
Yeah. That's where it's at, folks. You practice happy, you're going to be more profitable. You'll have more longevity, no burnout, peace of mind. Go home at night to your family and just enjoy your life, because we've got one shot at this thing. And at the same time, we have a shot at changing lives for people every single day.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting too. ESIS core purpose is delivering peace of mind. And even though we do different things than you do, our co-founder, Dr. James Anderson, he had been embezzled from, when you don't have cash flow for whatever the different reasons are. And it doesn't matter if you're a dentist or what type of entrepreneur you are. I mean, it definitely impacts your emotions, and which impacts your ability to retain great team members as well as patients, right? Now they are then beginning to look somewhere else because you can't connect with them. You're so stressed out. And I think that's really what we're about, right? In the helping profession is being able to bring that peace of mind. Let's talk for a moment before we end our time together about what about the dentist that currently is a practice owner that is struggling? And I know, like, the 10 wants in 10 years, it's many of the same principles, but what are you usually sharing with them to help them make those decisions around what they might want to do if they're not in their happy place where they are right now?
I think we need to establish a clear practice philosophy, a vision, a mission, a purpose. We need to surround ourselves with a team, not with employees, not with a staff, but with a group of like-minded people, and build that loyalty, build that togetherness around the mission of the practice. They never worked for me. They worked with me.
I love that.
And they work with me for the purpose of the practice.
Mm-hmm.
I think every dentist, every practice is different. There's no two practices that are alike. A practice owner has the opportunity to craft the practice in his or her own image, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are true to that image, if you are true to that core value, I don't care what it is, high volume or low volume, panky speared cois or bread and butter. It doesn't matter. People make good livings either way, and don't believe anyone who tells you you can't, because it simply is not true. If you're true to your values and practice that way and build a team and keep that team together, aligned with you, walking at your side,
Mm-hmm.
stay open to their input because they see stuff that you can't, then you will get there.
Yeah.
Ask me how I know.
Because you're living proof.
Because I did it.
You did it.
I did it from
Yeah.
rock bottom up, from crash and burn to fly.
Yeah. Well, what a remarkable story. And for those of you that know Alan, you'll know that what I'm about to say is true. A remarkable human being.
Thank you.
And a blessing to dentistry. And so for those that are listening, for the dentists that are listening that want to reach out because they at least want to have a meaningful conversation with you, right? To see if you might be a good fit for them. What's the best way for them to find you?
I would encourage you, Alan, ALAN, at betterricherstronger.com. That's the name of my business. That's the name of my endeavor. That's the name of my calling. Alan at betterricherstronger.com. I will talk to you for 30 to 45 minutes. I won't ask you for a dime. I'm not going to sell you anything. I want to listen and maybe open your eyes to some possibility.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for your time, Alan. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. It's always a pleasure. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Dental MBA podcast.